All right, everybody. Good morning. Happy Wednesday to you. Going to do a couple charts on Bitcoin as usual. Almost usual, I should say. Probably will have a few comments on Ukraine as well because in the midst of increasing bombing, there's also increasing scrutiny under the anti-corruption systems that are in place there. But anyway, I want to start the stream with, not this one actually, this one. So this is Bitcoin versus all physical currency in the world. All right. I shouldn't say all, it's the top 5. I just tweeted this. So this is a monthly frequency. That's why it looks a little bit jagged. Just looking at monthly closes, that's the best you can get for most currencies. As of June, we closed at 2.1 trillion. We're close to 2.3 trillion in market cap right now. Only currency bigger is the dollar. All right. This is actual physical dollars. Reminder, Bitcoin is not going to be comparable to your checking account, your savings account, your time deposit account. All that stuff is fiduciary media. Bitcoin is only comparable to base money, fiat base money, or gold. Right. Still well smaller than gold, 10% of gold value. But it's interesting to see as Bitcoin continues to accrete in value and adoption around the world, how these things stack up. See a big boom here in 2020 in money printing. But this is all dollars, physical dollars, cash money, hard currency in the world. It's the only one that is bigger than Bitcoin. All right. We've passed the euro as far as physical currency. All right, it's only about $1.9 trillion worth of euros, actual euros. Got to put this into dollars, right? Look at the Chinese yuan. They have a very seasonal and a little bit late than usual, since I understand the Chinese New Year's in February. So January, you get increase in cash. But this is a very typical thing that would happen in currencies all the way back. Of course, you see the U.S. has kind of gotten away from that. The yuan's very close to the euro. This is obviously, currency for a billion people. Most other people have no need for yuan. Some people outside of the ECB do hold euros like they would hold dollars, $100 bills. But obviously, there's different government currencies for different blocks, regions around the world. Let's look at the Japanese yen. Now, this is a funny one. The yen, they continue to inflate themselves away. So, good evening, Tim. Good to see you. Just looking at the top 5 physical currency stocks in the world versus Bitcoin. Let's just show Japan here versus, say, the dollar and Bitcoin. If I showed you a chart with native yen, it would still be increasing. But Japan just keeps inflating the currency, and the yen, slowly devalues against the dollar. And that's what you get in yen. They've had a 10, even 15-year head start as far as monetary easement ahead of the dollar. Well before the dollar was printing, a lot in 2008. Remember, this was right around the financial crisis. This is only physical currency. Remember, the monetary base, which includes those bank reserves, the bank account for every bank. That's also an analogous money supply to Bitcoin, final settlement in the financial system. That's not included here. But anyway, it's just interesting to see how the yen has continued to stagnate. It's really the only currency that has definitely printed its way beyond growth. Troubling for them. Then you got the Indian rupee. way down here. Okay, so if I just showed you them all together again, these are the biggest physical currencies. This is an interesting little experiment. Kind of weird. India chopped their physical currency stop down like, I think it was 266 down to 138. Yeah, I mean, it's 50% basically drop. By the way, you can only go to negative 100% for those people curious about Trump's price wins. You can't have negative 1,000%, negative 5,000% changes in prices. It's just a little basic math there. You can have 1,000% on the positive side, but you can't have it on the negative side if you're talking about prices. You can only go to negative 100%. Anyway, the Indian rupee had an interesting experiment here where they cut off. There was even some people died because of this action, but they decided to redo the stock of money. I can't remember the exact notes. If there's any Indian viewers by chance, you can tell me, but they redid the stock anyway. They filled it back up. It was kind of a pointless endeavor. I mean, again, looking from the outside, maybe from the inside, it was worthwhile to change some of the security serial numbers on the notes or whatever, but kind of a pointless exercise. These are the top 5 currencies in the world. And just a note about currency, this confuses a lot of people. Obviously, the dollar's the largest currency on this chart, but currency has come to have 2 definitions, but it used to only mean this. All right, so you can look at old textbooks, econ textbooks. You talk about hard currency, physical currency, cash. This was the name of currency. So it's not wrong to say, like, this is one of the fundamental benchmarks. The Bitcoin, which is money, people like to make that distinction, gold, silver, Bitcoin, they are money because they're not issued by a government, right? So they're not currency in that strict sense. But money is most relatable to currency. If you want to save in money, save in gold, save in Bitcoin, you got to look at what happens to the currency. And as you can see, Bitcoin's value in dollars appreciates much faster than all these other currencies or the dollar itself. The second definition, of course, of currency is just the general idea of the US dollar being the largest currency in the world. And that includes everything, all the contracts that are denominated in dollars, bank accounts, checking accounts, savings accounts. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm not going to go. I need to probably say I'm starting my streams now at 10 a.m. UK time. I know I've been starting late a couple days, but not going to stream too long today. So let's just let me know if you have anything. But this is fantastic. I mean, I was kind of had an eye on that $2.4 trillion of U.S. currency, physical currency that's been issued all time. Bitcoin's right there right now. If you look at the market cap right now, again, these are just monthly closes. But it's kind of something just to look at this, just linear scale. Bitcoin comes out of nowhere, really, in 2017 to Trump's first term to make a dent, and then 2021, and now here we are, 2025. It's not going to change. It's not going to change. Also, again, why I'm not a huge believer in the hyper-Bitcoinization narrative. I mean, you look at these are certainly inflating fast, but they're not inflating that fast, actually. If you do like the rate of growth here, I mean, they're 7, 8, 9% per year. Even in the native terms. Japan's probably a bit faster because it falls in dollar terms, but in native terms, it still grows. And if you're curious how much all of the currencies in the world are together, as I said in the tweet, it's about 9.4 trillion by my count. Probably a little bit more because I don't catch every single currency, but I catch the vast majority. $9.4 trillion worth of hard cash money exists in the world today. So Bitcoin's got a while to catch the 9.4, right? I mean, it's only 2.3. If you look at the very live price right now, 2.1, June close. We got some time. And if you take a look at even an example of the India case here in 2016, like this was super painful for this country to go through this. You know, it was supposedly a simple security upgrade, changing two notes, making them more secure. It's like lines for days, for weeks, all during this period. You can go back and just search the news. A couple of people died, as far as I understand, in the sun, waiting to change their notes. You can't just, I'm saying this as a practical matter, not that I agree with government control of the currency, but just as a practical matter, these things don't go to zero and Bitcoin inflates to infinity in those terms overnight. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's going to look more like this. And in reality, what I think it's going to look more like is this chart. All right, so here's a chart that I put together. I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Here we got the Bitcoin market cap extended out 100 years, or 75 years from today. Oops. See, it's a nice, beautiful power curve. As I say, they're 96% R squared. Let's take a look now at a few different things that will inflate around this. So let's look at world base money. All right, world base money. Again, now these are all exponential. Okay, so if I take Bitcoin off, you can see it's just straight line on log scale is the trend. And base money is actually way under trend right now. High interest rates, relatively, still compared to 0% interest that we had the last 15 years. High interest rates, low money supplies. The trend is 33 trillion. The money supply itself is 26.8 roughly by June. This is a very rough. I'm still updating for the second quarter. You know, China hasn't even published their second quarter numbers yet, so it's just it takes time to update. But regardless, we're way under trend. Way under trend here. Still a very strong trend, 91% R squared from 2008. It's a different trend than I show in other charts, but this is from 2008. You remember we have this about 150 trillion, it seems, that Bitcoin will cross world-based money. Let's put it on. That's if you add gold and silver. So if you don't add gold and silver, then it could be about the 100 trillion mark. 115 trillion to be precise on the model at the moment. It's early 2040. So again, going back to this chart, you got to just look at where the puck is going to skate. This is not where the puck is going to move. You got to skate where the puck is going to move. This is not something that's you can bank on happening tomorrow. As exciting as Bitcoin is, and I know that kind of is a boring message, maybe, compared to all the hype and AI media that we have these days. But I mean, Bitcoin's adoption is happening on a great rate, but other currencies' de-adoption is not happening at a great rate. And in fact, they're going to keep going. So again, 9 trillion if you add all these currencies together. What about if you add the monetary or the bank reserves? That's where you get the monetary base. That's where you get the 26 trillion. Okay, and these two will cross somewhere early 2040. Let's look at gold. We take off base money. Let's look at gold now. Gold's 10 times larger than Bitcoin. We'll take off Bitcoin again. See, it's still a straight line on log scale. Gold is way over trend at the moment. Now, trend is very important, right? Like, because the start date is very important, and I've said this a lot. So we're at $3,300, $400 gold prices. We're way over trend compared to the last 15 years, right? Corresponding with Bitcoin's life, where Bitcoin has basically been flat. So the trend, if we just draw on the 15 years, is flatter. If we took 50 years, where you go back to where gold was $35 an ounce back in 1971, it would be a little bit steeper. But again, I can show you that chart too. We can show all different charts. It's just one way to project. Peter Schiff would like this to be higher, but it has not been over the last 15 years. We'll see. 6.2% compound growth rate from 2008. All right, so if we compare Bitcoin growing on that power curve, when will Bitcoin pass it earlier than fiat? All right, 2030. 2030. The 2032 November. I like to round when I say these, even though I'm pretty precise in the numbers. It's, I don't know, easier to round. So again, no problem to pass gold, at least in the first stretch. Another one, let's look at U.S. Treasuries. What are U.S. Treasuries? This is the United States national debt. All right. It's a very smooth curve, smooth exponential curve. 36.2 trillion in treasuries. That is public debt outstanding in the United States. Publicly traded debt. U.S. Treasuries, 36.2 trillion. 7.3% compound growth rate. Extend that out. How does Bitcoin do against that? A little bit longer, but not a problem. I'm going to put back base money here, and you'll notice something a little bit interesting. So again, we're passing about, remember the base money numbers, about 115 trillion, 110 trillion. We'll pass that in around 2040. Let me take off Bitcoin. So this is U.S. Treasuries. Now let's put up world-based money. This is the total monetary base. Okay, it's all physical currency, physical cash in the world, plus the bank reserves, plus banks' account at the central bank, all of it together. Very similar numbers. Okay, so you're not wrong to, when people talk about money as debt and these types of things, you're not wrong to, completely wrong to say those things. One here is literally an asset on banks' balance sheets, or central banks' balance sheets, I should say, and one is a liability on central banks' balance sheets. This is an asset. This is a liability. Assets equals liabilities. Now, it's not a perfect, it seems pretty close, but there still are other things happening here. You can't make a simple assumption. Firstly, because central banks backing this base money, they don't hold 100% treasuries, right? The dollar is roughly 50 to 60% of foreign currency reserves, according to the IMF. I haven't done the exact analysis here, but let's say 50 to 60%. Okay, so, by the way, if you look at the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, which is at the moment, 6 trillion. Actually, let's pull it up so I don't totally get that wrong, but coming down from 9 trillion in 2021. Treasuries are 100% of its assets. Okay. It's important to remember these things. So here's world-based money. All right. All central banks in the world together. Right, way under trend, as you see, way under trend. What the trend line should be, but I'm sure it will get back there after some money printing, maybe starting this fall. I don't know why that timeline is messed up, but okay, here we go. So let me show you this. This is Federal Reserve's balance sheet itself versus the national debt itself. $6.37 trillion. That's many treasuries the Federal Reserve's books hold as an asset. And that's literally almost 100% of their assets. It's not exactly 100%, but it's literally almost, it's damn near it. Okay. And as you see, as a percentage of federal debt, gross federal debt, the Federal Reserve holds 18%. 18%, 17.6%. So when people say, are there enough, does the Federal Reserve have enough, money in the tank to buy more treasuries? Of course it has infinite money, it can do whatever it wants within reason. But there's precedent. They've had as high as 30% treasuries on their books before. Now they're down, as they've decreased the balance sheet, down to only 17.6%. The reason I say all that is all central banks hold government bonds. That's the modern way that central banks work, and this is not necessarily a new phenomenon. This was happening in even from the Renaissance. It was maybe dominated by the Medicis and certain certain monopolistic bankers that had privileges from the state, but you would have the sovereign you'd lend money to the sovereign, and in turn you'd hold the sovereign's bonds. And those bonds started about the Renaissance. You could start calculating interests on bonds. So it's been going a long time. Modern finance has been going a long time, centuries. Exponential growth. Many systems have broken, but it still grows exponentially. So if I show you total federal debt is almost equal to world-based money, that is an interesting observation, but note that it's not apples to apples, right? It's for example, there's $4 trillion worth of gold that is sitting on the asset side of all central banks globally. So that would be, if 26 trillion is the liability, 4 trillion is in gold as an asset, all right? And if let's just say roughly 50% is dollar-based holdings, and that's 13 trillion. By the way, we can easily show that on this chart. I have it calculated. Whoops. What's the holdings of foreigners of U.S. federal debt? 24% of the total. It's a different calculation, so actually I got to calculate it. So 36, 2 times 24, 8 trillion. Yeah, actually less than I thought. 8.6, let's call it 9 trillion. So and that is foreigners of, that's actually not even, this is gross foreign. So that could be even private foreigners. It's the vast majority is central bank, but it's not all central banks. That's another good point about money. So you have to break these things down in different ways. So this 26.8 trillion, roughly, which is projected at the moment to be the monetary base in my next June quarterly update. 4 trillion is backed by gold. Somewhere around 8 trillion or less is dollar-based bonds. Foreign currency reserves. China has them. Russia has them. Many countries have them. And then the rest are their own sovereign bonds. So Euro bonds, Japanese government bonds, so on and so forth. We had good analysis to do the asset side of the balance sheet too, but I just don't have it all that analysis together. Yes, they do, Tim. Actually, $42 bucks. It's the last price of the Smithsonian agreement. It's 42 and change. Before Bretton Woods finally collapsed, they had this thing called the Smithsonian agreement, and that's a whole other thing. So again, this is assets of the Fed, only treasuries, and they have a very small book value of gold on top of this, but the gold is worth way more. They have like probably 800 billion market, close to $1 trillion market. If they actually have the gold, it's always another question. But the book value is this crazy $42 an ounce. So some people have been talking about revaluing the gold at market, then buying Bitcoin with it, all sorts of things. I'm not holding my breath. I like to track it. I like to see where we are. But Bitcoin remains just the best way to escape any of this. That's always the great answer, right? It's the great answer, Tim. We have Bitcoin so it's the Treasury, you're right. We have Bitcoin. Actually, it's both. It's both. It's Federal Reserve and the Treasury. The Federal Reserve has most of it, but the Treasury has some too. By the way, the Treasury has no assets by and large. They have a little bit of land and they have this much debt. There's no assets. The only asset that the United States federal government has is, and they took this to May. I have June updated, but the only asset that they have is the taxing authority to pay this debt, which, as you can see, they're not doing a very good job at paying the debt down. Anyway, let's go back to this. So, bottom line, you might think you're onto something when world-based money matches total treasuries, but there's more to it. There's gold behind there. There's other government bonds behind this number. So that's why I like to calculate this. Nobody calculates this. You're not going to see this number anywhere. Only here. Let's go back to treasuries. This is the same. This is national debt. Federal. This is this number, right? It's federal debt. Extended out on a 7.3% compound growth rate since 2008. Bitcoin's going to cross it around the same time as base money, right? Start of 2040s. But even more than that, I think about this all the time. You know, now that I've started to chart these out, right? Like, when you do this stuff, I wasn't thinking about it too much. Okay, so here you have world-based money, U.S. Treasuries, gold. Bitcoin pretty much passes them, and for the next 100 years is well above, even though you can tell that it's going to go back because it's not a straight exponential growth. But there is this other thing that threw a wrench in my thinking, which is there's a few stock companies, Apple in particular, but there's Microsoft, and there's a very few. Microsoft, Apple, Amazon's probably doing it now. NVIDIA is probably growing faster than it will, I presume, because NVIDIA was never a top company for a long time, but now it is because of AI. But Apple shows that there are some exponential growth assets that can do better than Bitcoin. Bitcoin will pass, but then quickly go back down if Apple keeps this trajectory. It's a big if. I'm not saying they're going to do it. I'm just saying this is, compound growth is a strong thing. It's a strong factor, right? Apple was a $65 billion company when Bitcoin was born. Now it's at 3.2 trillion. 3.1. Lower than trend. So I've talked about this the past few videos, past few days. You guys let me know if you have any thoughts here, but you can't, one of these will have to break. Could be Apple. And when I say if Bitcoin breaks, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it means Bitcoin's going to adopt to a TradFi system. We could do one more. I haven't shown you is world-based money. Bitcoin even takes this one pretty easily. Not pretty easily. It's going to take some time, but it will take it. So this is world broad money. This includes all of your checking accounts, savings accounts, all those deposits, time deposits, money market funds. It's not as detailed as my base. So here's my base. Here's my broad. It's interesting. You see that the base will pass the broad. That's never going to happen. But It's just the way that this is growing. Uh, I I only have 5 currencies, the top 5 in the purple, and I have all of them in the world in the blue. So they're not exactly analogous. Probably another reason why you're getting faster growth here. You would get faster growth on the broad if I put all the other currencies. But anyway, Bitcoin would pass this too eventually, at least on this curve. So Bitcoin, I never thought too much about all the growth issues of Bitcoin, since pretty much easily would pass base money, gold, treasuries in the next 10, 15 years. But I do wonder what's it's going to look like here. Because Apple is a pretty ubiquitous company, a pretty powerful company. It doesn't mean it will stay powerful. But there's Microsoft too, Amazon. They are huge juggernaut companies in terms of market cap, and they also grow fast. Even, faster than everything else, obviously. Even gold. Look at gold. It's damn near flat on this chart at only 6.2% CAGR compared to Apple, which grows at 23% CAGR. I don't have the Bitcoin versus MicroStrategy chart yet, but I want to get that to you. Because as some people have observed, Smithsonian in particular, shown some good ones that I've seen. I think Giovanni has as well. I haven't looked at them, but the market cap of MSTR is starting to get that gentle curve. The more Bitcoin they hold on log scale. Bitcoin's going to win either way. But if Bitcoin gets sort of pulled into an exponential trajectory, meaning it turns into a straight line, that suggests that interest, fractional reserve banking, regular credit is starting to pile on top of Bitcoin the way that it does with every other asset. And when you have an asset that's explicitly limited in its cap, it will just be interesting to see how the price reaction of the underlying asset itself will grow. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, I think Warren Buffett had a good chart in one of, I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember exactly, but if you looked at the top 5 companies in the world, or top 20 companies in the world in 1970, it'd obviously be completely different than now. Many would be bankrupt even, or not many, but some would be absorbed by other companies. That stuff's harder to predict. But the store value is absolutely always going to be a mainstay. It's going to be there no matter what happens. I'm just trying to think about the attachment of leverage to Bitcoin, because many people talk about that. Saylor talks about it. Many people are doing it. And I wonder if that will change the power curve, if the power curve will morph into an exponential curve. Because by its nature, debt is an exponential asset. It's just by its nature. Be interesting to see if I need to do an update on the foreign holdings of treasuries in detail since the beautiful, no, what it was, Liberation Day, April 2nd. They're very delayed the way the Treasury releases them, but I'll get back to you on that. Quickly on Bitcoin. Again, if you got your Malox moments, don't worry. We're still in the 70th percentile range, only 1.1x the trend line. I don't see any way how that stays to be the top compared to prior cycles. Not financial advice, though. But I wouldn't get worried that this is somehow a top signal. I would get worried if you get above the 9 on this chart. It's never going above the arrow down, by the way, the 100%, in my opinion. Which is another reason why I'm not a hyper Bitcoiner. That happened twice. It happened here, 2013, and it happened here in 2011. Did not happen in 2017. Not even close to happening in 2021. But the 90th did. The 90th did, as I talk about all the time. Again, if you're curious, roughly, the 90th takes you to 250. That's 2x the trend. That's the 90th percentile. Very simple to think about in terms of multiples. The number won't change. 2x the trend is the 90th percentile as of my analysis. And I think you get to 2 to 3x based on that. So that's 250 to 375 as a top number this time. Let me know, guys, if you want to look at anything else, but this is really what I was going to show today. I think let's just look into the dollar and the euro. Look at that. I mean, they traded value after the global financial crisis. Euro was way, like we were at $1.6 to €1 at this point. Euro is way overvalued or high value to the dollar. That started to fall. Now the euro lags in dollar terms. The yen was even close, more on the monetary base side when you had the reserves, was higher here. Yuan picked up above even both a little bit right there. Yuan is, I mean, it's obviously just by nature of the economy, it's going to be huge. It's unbelievable. But Bitcoin will hedge against all of it. Here's some tough news for Ukraine. This is one of my favorite Ukrainian and actually just general authors. If you haven't read this guy's books, they're amazing. Yaroslav Trofimov, Ukrainian, as he said, their chief foreign affairs correspondent of the Wall Street Journal. And see, Zelensky ignored the protests and signed into law a fateful decision, there were a lot of protests over the last couple of days of a law that was, as my understanding, is basically to, as it says here, he says, dismantle Ukraine's independent anti-corruption bodies. Now, independent, for those of us, that like libertarian philosophy, is always kind of a tough word when you talk about the government, right? I mean, when the government investigates itself, you can make a lot of jokes about that, but at least these were under different branches of the government. And as I understand, they wanted to bring all of the anti-corruption under the prosecutor general, under the presidency. Students don't like that. It's amazing, though, that in Ukraine you have there's still positive things here. I mean, even though this was signed into law, you have students protesting it. You have the Klitschkos; they were protesting it. People out on the street at war, they're getting bombed, droned in the hundreds every night. And you'll never see this in Russia. You'll never see this in Russia. So I hope that the Ukrainians can get through this, figure it out. War is hell. These guys have been through a lot. So I don't know. My heart is with Ukrainians here. It's really trying times. I'm a big fan of Tomas Ilves, former president of Estonia, American Estonian, but he's pretty blunt here. Complete disaster. This will only fuel all those in Europe who think helping Ukraine is pointless, not to mention the whole Russian narrative of Ukrainians just stealing the West assistance for private enrichment, a narrative we have fought for years. So I don't know how big a deal this is or will be. It's gonna be an ongoing story, but obviously, Russia is not letting up. They are trying to completely make the Ukrainians capitulate. And now they have a political battle on top of a real battle. So we'll see. I need to update my Ukrainian charts. I mean, they're just morbid charts. They're hundreds of drones now a night. The Germans estimate that Russia wants to get up to 2,000 drone attacks a night. That's why I do Bitcoin. But Bitcoin's still not going to save you when your family's in the cross eyes of a drone. So scary for us. Scary for us in the Baltics. Sorry to be morbid on this Wednesday morning, but that's what I'm thinking about. Scary for the Ukrainians. All right, guys. Unless you have anything else, I'm going to keep it short today. So I'll hang around here for a second, but keep calm, carry on. I'm not hoping for money printing, but if they do print more money, it's obviously just gasoline on the fire for Bitcoin. And they can at least go historically up to 28% of the federal debt, that is the Federal Reserve, to buy more. So again, that it's all kind of a nothing burger. And if you see generally how the debt itself grows, Bitcoin will pass it eventually, whether it's on a power curve, whether it turns to an exponential curve. We'll see. $100 trillion might be the number where things really change for Bitcoin at the end of next decade, 2030s. Might actually be that 100 trillion starts to turn into Satoshis when we start thinking about Satoshi value more than penny value or dollar value. All right, guys, I'm going to cut it off here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe if you can. Have a good day.